My husband's family tried to kick me out of my own house. They didn't know I owned everything. For 3 years, my in-laws treated me like a guest in my own home. They walked in without knocking, rearranged my furniture, and once, my mother-in-law even hired a cleaner to fix how I kept the house without asking me. I stayed quiet because I loved my husband, and I thought keeping peace mattered more than being right. That changed the day they tried to legally remove me from my own home. A home they didn't even know I fully owned. My name is Claire. I'm 31, and I run a small interior design business from home. 3 years ago, I married Daniel, a man I loved deeply, but whose family had very strong opinions about how a wife should behave. His mother, Linda, made it clear from day one that she didn't think I was good enough for her son. Too independent, too career-focused, too modern, as she liked to say. What Daniel's family didn't know was that before we got married, I had already bought our house outright with money from a startup I sold in my 20s. Daniel knew, obviously. It was our home, and we built our life in it together. But to keep peace with his parents, we never mentioned it. As far as they were concerned, Daniel had bought the house, and I was simply lucky to live there. I let them believe it. It felt easier than fighting a narrative they were determined to have. Everything came to a head last spring. Daniel's job required him to travel for 6 weeks for a work project overseas. It was during this time that Linda began showing up almost daily, letting herself in with a spare key Daniel had given his parents years before we got married, a key I didn't even know still existed. At first, it was small things. She'd rearrange my kitchen, replace my curtains with ones she thought looked better, tell me my color choices for the living room were too bold and needed fixing. I brushed it off, telling myself it was temporary while Daniel was away. Then one afternoon, I came home from a client meeting to find moving boxes in my living room. Linda was there with Daniel's younger brother, Chris, packing up some of my belongings, my books, my design awards, even a painting I had bought during a trip to Portugal years before Daniel and I even met. I asked her what she was doing. She said calmly, like it was the most normal thing in the world, "Daniel and I talked before he left. We think it would be healthier for the family if you moved into the guest cottage behind the main house for a while, so we can properly prepare the main house for when Daniel and you eventually start a family. This home should feel like a real family home, not a bachelor pad situation you've turned it into." I was stunned, not because of the audacity. I already expected audacity from Linda, but because she said, "Daniel and I talked." I called Daniel immediately, and he had no idea what she was talking about. He hadn't approved anything. Linda had simply decided, on her own, that she had the authority to reorganize my life while her son was thousands of miles away. I told her clearly, "This is not your decision to make. This is my house." That's when Linda laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Sweetheart, everyone knows Daniel bought this house. You just live here. Let's not pretend otherwise." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I simply asked her to leave, put everything back exactly where it was, and called a locksmith the next morning to change every lock in the house, including replacing the old spare key system entirely. But Linda wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from a lawyer, hired by my in-laws, claiming that since I wasn't listed as a legal owner of their son's property in any documents they were aware of, they wanted to formally establish family housing boundaries while Daniel was traveling, citing concerns about unstable behavior from me, including the sudden lock change. That was the moment I stopped being patient. I called my own lawyer, sent over the property deed, which had my name as the sole owner, purchased 2 years before I even met Daniel's family, and had a formal response drafted. Not aggressive, not emotional, just facts. I invited Linda, her husband, and Chris to a sit-down meeting at the house, the same house they had tried to have me removed from. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I needed them to understand, clearly and permanently, that the story they had built in their heads was false. When they arrived, I placed the property deed on the table in front of them. "This house is mine," I said. "Not Daniel's, mine. I bought it before we were even together. Daniel moved in with me, not the other way around. Everything you've believed for the past 3 years has been wrong. And instead of asking, you decided to try to legally push me out of my own home while my husband was overseas." Linda's face went pale. She tried to backtrack, saying she didn't know, that it was just a misunderstanding, that she was only trying to help. But her lawyer's letter didn't say anything about helping. It said family housing boundaries and cited my behavior as unstable, a term used specifically to build a case against me. Daniel came home 2 days later. When I showed him everything, the moving boxes, the letter, the recorded conversation I had with Linda when she first tried to justify moving my belongings, he was furious, not at me, at his mother. He sat his parents down and told them plainly that any future attempt to interfere with our home, our marriage, or my ownership of anything would result in permanent distance from him and from any future family they hoped to be part of. Linda tried one last time to smooth things over, saying, "We're just trying to protect this family." Daniel's response was simple. You don't protect a family by trying to remove someone from their own home. It's been 8 months since that meeting. Linda barely visits anymore, and when she does, she knocks first every single time. The spare key is gone. The lawyer's letter sits in a folder I keep, just in case anything like this is ever attempted again. I don't regret staying quiet for those first few years. I thought keeping peace was worth swallowing my pride. But I learned that peace built on lies about your own life isn't peace at all. It's just delay. Sometimes the truth needs to be placed plainly on the table, deed and all, before people stop rewriting your story for you.